Well, hello and welcome listeners and viewers to our weekly High Vibe Tribe expert interview. My name is Liz Garcia. I am founder of the MindBodySpiritNetwork.com and the High Vibe Tribe Radio.com and High Vibe Tribe TV.com if you're listening to us on a podcast or watching us on YouTube. I'm your happy host of all of that. And every week, we like to bring in transformational leaders, teachers, and healers somewhere in the realm of mind, body, spirit. And today is no exception. And before I introduce our guest, I want to kind of prompt you with what we're going to talk about today. And the question is, are you a highly sensitive person? And do you even know what a highly sensitive person may be? Maybe you've never heard that term before, but maybe the description of one will kind of pique your interest. So a highly sensitive person is also known as HSP. And you'll see it once you start to identify with that. That's the simple way to find, Google HSPs, you're going to find a lot of information about highly sensitive people. And an HSP, if you suffer, you may suffer from intense anxiety and overwhelm. That's one possible sign. If you have chronic health issues, panic attacks, angry outbursts, they're also common in highly sensitive people. And decision-making and taking action can be difficult due to paralyzing fears. You may also struggle with setting boundaries or limits, often apologizing or hiding your true needs, unable to create space, alone time, or engage in loving self-care. If any of these sounds like you, don't be concerned. Fear not, we have an expert here to help you with all of this and help you to understand that there is an underlying gift in all of these highly sensitive people. Isn't that right, Julie? Isn't that what you have come to find?
Yes, absolutely. Lots of gifts with it.
Okay. Well, good. I can't wait to hear about the gifts. So I'm going to introduce you to our guest, Julie Bjelland. Did I say that right, Julie? Julie Bjelland.
Yes, you did.
It's an unusual spelling. I'm going to spell it for you podcast listeners. It's Bjelland. Bjelland. What is that? Is that like
Norwegian?
Oh,
Norwegian. So they have to pronounce the Y the J like a Y.
Oh, Bjelland. It's kind of like Spanish too, isn't it? J-Y, I forget. I'm not going to think about my Spanish right now. So let me give you a little scoop on Julie. And so Julie is a psychotherapist, author, and leader in the field of high sensitivity and has helped thousands of highly sensitive people, also known as HSP, around the world. As an HSP herself, Julie understands what it's like to live with high sensitivity and strong emotions, and she's on a mission to empower highly sensitive people to live their best lives. Julie has developed proprietary tools and techniques to help reduce the challenges and increase the positives that HSPs experience on a daily basis. These techniques have been developed over years of working with highly sensitive people and have proven extremely successful for her clients and students. In her free time, Julie loves being in nature, being around animals, gardening, reading, and daydreaming about having a little farm one day. She shares her home with her chef partner, 2 children, and a house full of pets and plants. Julie, no wonder you would like Colorado. I'm dreaming about a farm one day too. And I drive by, there's farms of alpacas around here and llamas. I'm like, oh my God, I want them in my farm.
Wow, that's a nice life for a sensitive person.
I know.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about Julie's in California, just in the East Bay of San Francisco. And I'm in the Rocky Mountain highs of Aspen, Colorado. And it's a gorgeous day here today. I don't know how the weather is in California, but it is John Denver, Rocky Mountain High, beautiful today. How's it going in San Francisco?
It's pretty warm here in the East Bay. We get up to the 90s and hundreds sometimes. Actually, in the summer, it gets pretty hot. Yeah.
Oh, really? I'm surprised. I thought it stayed cool there with all that fog.
Yeah, and that's closer to the city.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, Julie, thousands of people, like one-on-one, or how did you end up working with thousands of people?
Through my courses.
You
Yeah.
took
And
courses. Okay.
yeah.
Got it. All
Yeah.
right.
And I see clients one-on-one. I work with students in my courses and also kind of coming through all my books and everything.
Okay. Tell us, I picked up some of your books. I found them online. Please tell us some of your books that have really hit home for people. What are the titles of those again?
Yeah, the Empowered Highly Sensitive Person, that one is my newest.
Ooh.
And it's been amazing to hear from readers all over the world. And it's like they talk about how they feel like they're understood for the first time, that I've used language that they've never been able to put into words, like their feelings and their experiences. And it's just been amazing and beautiful. And my brain training for the highly sensitive person, that book is correlated with my course,
Okay.
one of my courses. And it's really about training the brain to be able to navigate the world as a sensitive person and not be so overwhelmed all the time.
Okay. All right. So before we're going to get to your course and your Shift Network event, because we are partners here of the Shift Network, and we'd like to collaborate with them to bring you these really exceptional people from all over the world. And it's pretty interesting. In the Shift Network is really bringing to light the issue with highly sensitive people. With their, were you part of that summit? Their Empath?
Yes, I was. Yes,
Okay.
I was invited to do the summit, and then after the summit, they invited me to come on as faculty. Yeah.
Nice. So how did you figure out you were a highly sensitive person? Or
Well, I definitely knew I was a sensitive person from a very early age, and really kind of didn't find out about the term for it until later. Even Elaine Aron was really the pioneer for researching and kind of discovering this trait, and that her book came out in the 90s.
what's her name again, Julie?
Elaine Aron. Yeah,
Okay.
so she was kind of the researcher and really the pioneer that brought this trait to life in terms of having people, although it was interesting because when I first learned about it, nobody was talking about it. I gave workshops to therapists, and like nobody had heard of the trait. So it's really kind of been exploding for a while now.
And so when did Elaine's book come out?
In the 90s.
In the 90s. So we're 20 years in it, 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And when would you say it just really came to light in a big way?
I think learning about the trait tends to be a very transformational experience for most people. So learning about it, and I got really interested in it because as most people who are sensitive experience, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a reason why I'm like this, and there's other people like this, because it's only 20% of the population. So we're used to being surrounded by the 80% that are very different. They experience the world in a different way. We even have brain differences. So that I got really excited about that because there's this validation and normalization that comes with that. And I think that's very powerful.
Now, being an HSP yourself, did that lead you into psychotherapy? Or were you already doing that regardless?
I had actually thought about doing something like this in psychology when I was much younger, but at that time I wasn't very emotionally regulated. I didn't know about the trait. I found it very difficult to sort of exist as such a highly sensitive person. So I didn't think I didn't have the confidence in myself to do that kind of work. And so I actually became a trainer for guide dogs for the blind. That was my early career.
Really?
Yeah, and I loved it. It was fantastic as a sensitive person you have all that extra information, and it was a very meaningful career.
I bet.
And then after an injury, I started doing my own training, and I started realizing like, wow, I really love the psychology part of this. And it turned into, if somebody came to me with an issue with their dog, it came about like, well, what's going on in your life that made this start happening with your dog? I started transferring over into the psychology, and then I went back to grad school and got my psychology degree. And then as kind of the process of that started really specializing in this trait. And so it was so needed to have somebody talk about this more. And I'm kind of known for being able to decipher research and explain it in ways that are understandable and things like that.
Okay, so did you get involved in the research of it all, or you studied the research of it?
I
Or
studied the
both?
research, but I've also done my own research over the years, and just kind of working globally with HSPs and seeing what we all experience, and we have such similarities. I tend to really specialize in those of us that are really highly sensitive at the very top, because there's actually a spectrum.
Okay.
And those of us that are extremely sensitive, we have more challenges in lots of ways, but we also have more gifts. So I got really passionate about realizing, like, if we could lift off that layer of overwhelm, it's like
Right.
gifts inside are amazing.
Nice. Well, I have to say, I went to a talk of a friend of mine, and I knew she was highly gifted. And I didn't really always fully understand what a highly sensitive person was. So I was listening to her. I'm like, whoa, this is a highly sensitive person when she's describing her upbringing and challenges with her dad. And her dad was like, all that he cared about was success. And the carrot was always out here of success. She never was ever successful because the carrot's always out here. So she's just talking about that struggle. And she is super gifted in like intuitive healing type of realm. And it was interesting to listen to her. So I wondered, Julie, now empaths and HSPs, are they different or not really?
That's a great question, and that's getting discussed a lot right now.
Yes.
I've stayed, so most of my career, I've stayed in the lane of the highly sensitive person, because it's called sensory processing sensitivity. That's the scientific name for it.
Oh,
And it's been proven in science. And so there was a group of us that felt like it was really important to stay in the lane of science so that people would take it seriously.
yes.
And and I think that in terms of the empath world, I'm getting a lot more introduced to that now, as part of the Shift Network. And so I've been paying more attention to what people are saying about both, because we haven't got scientific proof about empaths. So it's
Okay.
difficult to say if, you're one or the other in terms of that part. So what I do really focus on is the scientific part of the trait, because I think it's so important to go, this is real. And
Right.
to be able to tell your doctors and your therapists and that this is a real thing and really a part of your nervous system and your biology and your brain differences and all of that.
Okay. So someone else said empaths are different. So maybe it's a way of processing in the brain as well, but it's different. Or do you know?
Yeah, it's difficult to say, because I've heard both parts, that like if you're an HSP, you're an empath, or if you're an empath, you're an HSP. And then I've heard the exact opposite of that too, that there's just a small percentage, maybe 2% are empaths and 20% are sensitive people. So it's still being widely discussed, and there's a lot of different opinions about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the brain research showing?
Yes, we have actual brain differences, and it's fascinating. Like, we have more activated stress centers. We have more activation in the amygdala part of our brain, which is that part of that fight, flight, freeze system. We have more activation in the brain mirror neuron system, which is like we can be observing someone or something, maybe wounded or in pain in some way, and we'll literally fire the same neurons and feel like we're experiencing it. We have, one of the gifts is that we actually have more activation in our insula part of our brain, which is the seat of consciousness, and it makes us incredibly aware. And I know, having worked with a lot of HSPs, we kind of assume that everybody has that awareness, but they don't.
So what do you mean? What do you mean by they're very aware?
Just being, we can read like micro expressions and body language, for example, that 80% of the population misses. We have a very high intuitive ability, really empathic, being able to feel what other people are feeling. I mean, it's we often know what somebody needs before they know. We can be very gifted parents in that sense. They can really know what our kids need, and gifted partners know what our partners need before they even know. So even biologically, we can often know that something's going on in our bodies before it shows up in medical tests.
So it's got to be a little disturbing to take on the pain of somebody else, I would think.
It can be very, very draining. Yes.
Right. And then, so did you experience like taking on somebody else's stuff, not knowing you were doing that? Or did
Oh,
you
absolutely.
observe both? Like, here comes someone, they're dumping all over me or whatever. You feel it all, and then you recognize both. Like, oh, this is weird. Why am I, like, how do you deal with that? That could be disturbing if you didn't know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's another reason why it's so important to understand what's going on, because then you can do something about it. Otherwise, we're sort of like these exposed nerve endings walking around in the world, sort of absorbing, especially those of us that are really highly sensitive, we're absorbing everything if we're not careful. So some of the techniques that I teach are about, like, how do we even protect ourselves with that, and be able to kind of have a little bit of a separation between what we're experiencing. And, we can even walk into a space and start experiencing something and not even realize is it like ours? Is it somebody else's? We can have those kinds of experiences too. And I know for myself, I grew up on part of my life on a farm, and there was stuff, I would get very attached to the animals, and then I won't even talk about it because there's sensitive people listening, but I had a lot of suffering with the things like that. So definitely you have to learn how to protect yourself if you're going to be absorbing everything like that, to try to prevent so much absorption.
That's interesting that you're saying, I won't say this because sensitive people are listening.
Yeah.
Sensitive people that are untrained.
Yeah, good point.
I love that phrase.
Yes. Yeah, I use that phrase a lot. Did you get that from my work?
I did.
Yes. Yes.
So listen to you guys out there. If you're an untrained HSP, this is what Julie's kind of suggesting.
Yeah, because honestly, I would not be able to do all the stuff that I do if I hadn't have trained my brain and my experience, because I would just be overwhelmed all the time. And that's why we see so much anxiety, we see depression, we see a lot of things that can be remedied quite quickly in the sensitive system if they understand what's going on in the first place and learn some of these tools.
Okay. So, so society, this generation, we're just evolving still, but society is affecting the highly sensitive, should do this, should do that, should be this way. And the brain's like, what? No, it does not compute. It does not compute. It's kind of what's going on, right? With people that are untrained.
Yeah, and the society that we're living in right now, it's that, people aren't taking breaks, and they're in massive commutes, and they're overworked, and they're, the constant pinging of the phone. The brain's going into an activation every time the phone's pinging. So I always tell my HSPs, turn off your pinging, because your brain needs a rest. Even before phones, we actually used to sit and do nothing sometimes, while we're waiting.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And now it's constant. And what happens for the sensitive system, if you imagine like our nervous system as being sort of a container, HSPs have, 100 cups of stuff dumped into that container at any moment. And 80% of the population might only just have a few cups. So by having so much going on in the nervous system, it's impacting it's making the nervous system be overloaded, and that means it can't process toxins in the same way. It can't process as much. So I'm always telling HSPs, you've got to have at least 2 hours a day to yourself to process, to rest, to restore, because it's important for your overall wellness.
So in your training, Julie, do you kind of like map out, like, this is what an HSP brain looks like? Or
Yeah,
it's processing?
definitely.
Bringing that into an awareness is like an aha moment for those people.
It's a huge aha moment. And it's interesting too, because a lot of HSPs have resentment in their life with their partners, friends, work, because they're like, I'm so giving. Why am I not receiving all of that? And most of us don't realize that 80% of the population doesn't have the same set of information we have. So for example, if we're, being extra kind and courteous to someone, we're sort of wanting that back. And if we're not getting that back, we can get resentful, and that can, damage relationships. And I see that a lot in sensitive people. So really having an awareness, like, that person isn't doing that to be unkind to you by not giving that back. A lot of times they don't have an awareness of it. And we're kind of notorious for meeting everybody else's needs and not meeting our own. So that also contributes to resentment, because we're getting depleted so often.
Now, is this stronger in women or not necessarily? It's like
The
50.
resentment piece?
No. HSP dumb.
Oh, no, it's actually equal across gender.
Ah,
And about 70% of us are introverts. So it's not even the same thing as introversion. Most of us are, but there's still 30% that are considered extroverts. So, yeah, it's very interesting. It's actually spread equally across gender, although sometimes depending on where you live culturally, how, like in the United States, for example, we men are sort of culturally, you know, not allowed to be sensitive and not to allowed to express that. So a lot of times they bury some of that. And what can happen is, and some HSPs in general do that, sort of bury the emotions. And then you can actually think like, well, that person doesn't have any emotions, like they're not showing their emotions. And then of course that shows up as problems in relationships if we're not able to do that. So we have to kind of, as a society, start to embrace this. And it's interesting because some cultures do embrace sensitivity. And what I've seen, like when I've had clients in some of those cultures, their self-esteem is okay. But a lot of clients and students that are in the US, that self-esteem is a big problem because it's not as accepted to be sensitive. It's not necessarily known as a positive word, but I'm here to change that.
good. Now,
Yes.
what part of the world is it considered a gift? Or
For example, some of Asian countries.
I was going to say Japanese kind of feels like it.
Japan, China, for example. And it's interesting because I've had those kind of experiences with some of them, either students or clients. And that's when I started realizing like, wow, I was thinking self-esteem was kind of an issue for most sensitive people, but it's not as much for people that were, and we have research that shows that parents that support their sensitive child and meet those needs, those kids are actually less likely to experience anxiety and depression and thrive even more than a non-sensitive child. But if you're not given the kinds of support, like most of us didn't get it because our parents didn't even know about the trait, we are more likely to experience anxiety and depression because, we've been getting messages like, I got those, what's wrong with you? Why are you so sensitive? Why are you reacting like that? And you start thinking there's something wrong with you.
Right away. So this is a good time to bring up, how do you recognize the sensitivity in a child? This would be great for parents to know and learn to nurture that and have them thrive. So
yeah, it's really important. Especially too, because I'm seeing a lot of misdiagnosis. I'm seeing kids get diagnosed with stuff they don't actually have, and they get put on medications that are hard on their systems. So it's really important that parents learn about this trait and they really educate their medical providers, try to find medical providers that know about the trait, although that we have a lot of areas to grow in this part because there's a lot of providers that don't know about the trait. So a big part of my mission too is helping HSPs really advocate for their needs medically and also for their children. So some of the ways you're going to see is, if your child has meltdowns in crowds or during busy events, for example, the overstimulation of that, like a birthday party, things
okay.
Mm-hmm.
A meltdown. I wouldn't think they wouldn't have outbursts, but they do. They don't just
yeah, I sometimes use a different word than outburst just because sometimes I feel like that has a sound to it that feels a little derogatory or something like that. I sometimes will use the word meltdowns just because I think of it as being like my body's in chaos right now and it's starting to melt down. And if you think about the brain as having like two parts, the emotional brain and the cognitive brain, for the HSP, the emotional brain is generally more activated and more easily activated. And what happens then is the cognitive brain goes to sleep. And the cognitive brain is the one that has the facts and the rational thought and things like that. So if your emotional brain is too activated, you can ruminate, you can worry, you can move into panic and anxiety, things like that. You're not able to say, like, I'm really starting to feel bad, maybe I need a break. That comes from the cognitive brain. So,
okay.
Yeah. So
that's not running.
Yeah.
You have a meltdown.
Yeah. So sometimes tantrums, if you're seeing tantrums, tend to be about unmet needs that child has a need. So a parent that's aware of this can pay attention, at the birthday party, make sure the child has had food and drank something and has a little break in the middle of the party, and not having 3 busy days in a row. I know for myself, like my parents didn't have very many rules for me, but one rule was that I could never spend the night 2 days in a row with a friend because I would always get sick.
Oh.
Just overstimulation, not sleeping as well. And even if I was having a great time, that would happen.
Well, that's pretty interesting for parents to be aware of this. And I don't think saying outburst or meltdown is derogatory, because it's just like a severe reaction.
Yeah.
What's going on is there's processes are shut off, and they can't cope or communicate what's going on without, right?
Yeah. I think that, because that's what happens when the emotional brain, and for example, if that amygdala is getting activated a lot, that's that fight, flight, freeze. So you'll see, that's when you might see, either that, and HSPs can experience that. It's like when you feel like you just got to get out of here right now, and you just, you got to run. Some people have the experience of more of a fight, where they might pick apart a fight with their partner or something like that, where they just got to get that out.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because kind of learning about what's happening, that how the brain uses oxygen, and it changes the way it uses oxygen. So I teach about how to kind of reset the brain, and there's things you can do that's almost like having a button in your brain to say, okay, I need my cognitive brain back to support my, to give me that balance.
You're speaking to me here, Julie. I'm like, I never considered myself HSP, but I do have some things going on that are kind of indicative of that to an extent. And I have been wondering about taking on other people's illnesses. Like, why don't, I'll feel someone else's pain, and I'm like, this is not mine. What's going on here?
Yes.
And I've learned to get rid of it, hopefully. Okay. So, I still love that untrained HSP. And if you're listening out here and you still have problems, you're untrained.
Training, yes, it absolutely transforms your life and everyone around you, because if you're feeling more balanced, because if I'm not balanced, my partner and my kids are going to be impacted by that.
Right.
And so everyone that says, I don't have time,
it's the ripple effect.
It's the ripple effect in both directions too. So if you're working on your wellness and balance, your family is going to be more balanced. And it's so fascinating, because I work with a lot of parents too, and they'll come back and say, oh my gosh, I was teaching them what I was doing, like some of these tools, and they're like, they're getting better too. Or maybe even my own anxiety going down.
Right.
Because if you see anxiety in children, you got to look at what's happening with the parents. There's almost always a factor with the parents having too high levels of stress or anxiety, so the child isn't getting that balanced sort of energy in the home.
Well, we are a sea of consciousness.
Yes.
Whoever you're around, you're in the sea of their consciousness. I study consciousness, Julie, so I like to talk about, this type of stuff, but you can't help but, kids are always affected by the parents.
Yep.
Yep. And looking back, on growing up, I'm like, no wonder, I get it. Things came to light. I'm like, oh, that explains it. It helps to explain it. You better to learn it, before you turn 50 though.
Yeah, that's true. Although any time is a good time, because it's like the rest of your life's going to be better when you learn this. Yeah. I always tell HSPs, it's like you develop these tools, they're with you for the rest of your life.
Nice. So, Julie, how do you act as a global consultant for HSPs? In what capacity do you do that?
Through video.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you work with any particular groups, or like therapist groups or anything like that? Or
all of the above, pretty much. It's a pretty quite an array between therapists, like global healing coaches, parents, all kinds of, and my courses have always been really global too. So it's really exciting. You have people from all over the world taking a course together.
Yes. But do you do them live? Some of them?
Mm-hmm.
Like on Zoom or something like that?
Yes, I've done it both ways. We've done it live, we've done it recorded, we've done it kind of like a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the course. I'm helping support your brain training for HSPs course. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? It got great reviews, by the way.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Testimonies are exceptional, and you'll have to check it out.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. So it's an 8-week program, and it's really about helping you grow kind of new neural sprouts in your brain, which are possible. In fact, it only takes about 2 or 3 weeks to grow a new neural sprout. And what that is your ability to move away from, emotional activation, so that you're activating that whole limbic system, and going into an ability to do more of pause, reflect, and response. And having that little bit of space between I'm experiencing this and I'm reacting, so that you can have a space to go like, okay, I need to think through what I need. It's about really customizing self-care for you, what works for you. And that's very different than what we've been taught, because what we've been taught is what works for the 80%, not what works for the 20%. And that's a huge piece right there. So we learn about the brain differences, and we learn about the types of self-care. We learn about emotional triggers and sensory triggers, because actually we're not always aware, since it's a sensitivity, a sensory sensitivity, we aren't always aware that we're actually getting nervous system overload oftentimes from sensory stuff around us. And so bringing awareness to that, and also just helping people learn about their positives and their gifts. And what's really exciting is that the graduates afterwards, we stay in touch in a graduates group, and I get to see them soar and fly in the world, and I love it. And HSPs are known for being such compassionate people in the world, and they go out and make the world a better place, and that's what happens.
So is there any particular gifts that are really strong in an HSP?
Yeah, we have lots of gifts, and we named some of them earlier. And also just to be able to, I think that we tend to be, it's a survival strategy of the population. That's why this trait even evolved in the first place. So we're the type of person, we want to get things done right the first time. And so we're detailed planners. We look at details. We're taking in so much information. And so we're going to be the ones that notice things before anybody else notices it. And, I'm always joking that like I want HSPs to design like a remote control and, to fix some of the efficiency problems we might have. I'm like, if an HSP was doing that, they would know exactly how to make that more efficient.
That's interesting. A remote control. Now, why do you bring up a remote control? I have a brother who's crazy with the remote.
Yeah, I just think like the systems in general improve in a lot of ways. I actually encourage companies. I consult with companies also sometimes to just kind of encourage them to learn more about what this trait is, because it's a gift to the company. In fact, but you need to care for these employees in a particular way.
Oh, interesting.
Support the system.
I mean, 20% is a big number.
Yeah, it's like 1.4 billion people.
It's really big. I mean, you can't ignore it.
Yep.
We don't want 20% of the world stressed out, untrained.
Yeah, and
how to process things.
Because like those gifts that are inside of us are oftentimes buried. I know for myself, when I was, having anxiety and stress and super high stress and things like that, I couldn't give my gifts to the world. So that's an important part. We actually score, we have higher levels of stress in work, but we show up as having the best reports from supervisors as doing the best job. And most HSPs out there, if you're listening, you're probably somebody that takes on more than others at work. And that's a big part of the trait too, is you're always helping people. You're always trying to, oftentimes to the detriment of yourself, that you're giving.
But if you get that under control, it's kind of an enjoyable thing, I would think.
Absolutely. Because if you find that balance, you can still be that beautifully caring person in the world, but not be having a meltdown because you gave too much. So finding that balance. I talk about it like an energy point system. Pay attention to your points and where they're going.
Like rewards, right?
Like if you got 100 points for the day, for an HSP, you know, if you're helping everybody, you're going to drain those points very quickly. So you've got to figure out how, like, where's the places I really choose to put those points, and how can I refill that tank at the same time?
I think I would have never called myself an HSP, but I got some traits going on here for sure. I give everything away.
Yeah.
All right. But now I'm having fun doing it in a different way. I think I've changed my mind about some things. It's kind of funny. I owned a restaurant when I was young on Nantucket, which is an island off of Cape Cod. And I noticed when I was young, like when you see hundreds of people every day, you start to see patterns. And someone could walk in, I could like pinpoint them in a second.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is what's going on there. It was kind of funny. I just was aware of it. And then I noticed that we worked with a lot of New Yorkers from Manhattan. You know, it's a tough, you know, highly stressful environment to live and work in Manhattan. So they're a little bit on edge when they come on vacation, but they walk in, they'd want to be up in arms and complain about something. And I'd walk over to the table and I always said I'd diffuse the bomb for somehow. I would just be present with them and the bomb would be gone. Like, oh, it was just interesting you were talking about observing patterns. I think I have that ability, but I gave credit to the fact that I saw thousands of people for decades, because I was also I owned a retail store where I'd have hundreds of people coming in every day, and restaurant. I'm like, oh, yeah, I would pinpoint everybody. I'm like, oh, this is going on, that's going on. That's funny. All
yeah,
right.
you probably could know exactly what they needed, things like that. And, you know, talking about some of the gifts, the musicians and artists and people who own businesses and chefs. I think about my partner's a chef and has a catering company, and like the ability that she has to put like the most beautiful food out that tastes the most amazing. It's just like, that's part of the trait too. She's an HSP as well. So, you know, even being able to sense subtle flavors and what goes together, and the way that, you know, she kind of displays something, it's like art. And,
Yes.
and I always thought it'd be fun to start to like displaying all the different HSP talents out there, because some of the best musicians in the world, best artists in the world, are actually sensitive people.
Interesting. I'm a chef too, and I love to make things look beautiful. So I'm like, I want to come over to your house and play.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, because I don't really like to cook too much. I'll like make jam or something like that and have my garden, but yeah. I don't like to cook too much. So to experience her food is just, I mean, it's amazing.
Nice. All right. So listeners and viewers, I'm going to put something in the video so you can see. You can check out Julie's 8-week online course. It's a self-paced course you take on your own. Julie doesn't get involved unless you email her and say, I need help.
We go through different things a little bit. Sometimes I'll do a program where I'm with them, and sometimes meet with them afterwards. And so it's walked through with, it's got videos, my videos, walking them through, as well as written material that they do. Yeah. But
you still do work one-on-one with people, Julie, on occasion, or?
Yes, I still do some one-on-one. A little limited, but I do some.
Okay, because she's a busy lady teaching the world. So you can check out Julie's course on the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/HSP-brain-training. And on the video, you're going to see that link here. And in the podcast, we'll have links and descriptions of that. So you can just click, although most people listening aren't clicking anywhere, but we'll have it all available for you to connect with Julie. And we'll also have a blog post that will be the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/interview-Julie-Bjelland. That's a hard one to spell. I'll spell it again, Bjelland. All right. So Julie has been selected as a presenter and expert teacher for the Shift Network, who I mentioned at the beginning. And she's doing, she's going to be coming live this Saturday, July 27th of 2019. So if you're listening to this in the future, you can still come to the blog post and links that we'll share, so you can connect with Julie regardless. And if all goes well, it's likely this will come around again at the Shift Network, and she'll have all kinds of opportunities. And we stay connected with the Shift Network so that we can share all of our experts with you and these transformational leaders, and on the subject of high sensitivity, highly sensitive people. So Julie, tell me about this event and then the course that leads into this. It's different than the one we just spoke about.
Yes, this course is going to have a live interaction with me, and it's really the kind of culmination of all my years of researching and working with HSPs with this trait. So we really go into a lot of detail. I give a lot of I teach a lot of techniques and tools in this program. Even on the Saturdays event, we teach a brain tool that actually calms the HSP overwhelmed brain. We teach it right there in the event on Saturday.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, so this course is going to be fantastic. We even I'm even bringing in a naturopathic doctor to talk about the sensitive system, and we're going to be. It's a 7-week course, so we're going to be talking about understanding the trait, learning about your challenges and your gifts. We're going to be learning how to protect our energy and boost it so that we're not so overwhelmed all the time. We're going to be learning a lot of the brain training skills that I've developed over the years that I know work, because the ones that for sure that I've been using that work. We're going to be working on kind of a customized self-care plan for you that works for you to keep you in balance. To really be your strongest self, and to work on future templates, I call them, that are about like, how do you live in the world at your highest level? How do you really truly thrive, move out of survival mode into thriving? It's a really profound experience to share it with other HSPs. So I'm excited about that part, because
yes,
every time I've done a course where we've actually been live together with other HSPs, I mean, to hear afterwards what people are saying about it, I just got goosebumps talking about it, because
nice.
It's so beautiful, and people feel so validated and nurtured and supported and normalized and accepted. And really, my goal is that you get to the end of this course and you really have developed a self-acceptance and a love for yourself, and a way to really lift off those challenges and really access those gifts that you have, because the world needs you to be your best. We need sensitive people, and we need all your gifts. So that's what this is about. You probably can see how passionate I am about this subject.
It's quite evident, Julie. Thank you for your love and passion for it. I can see that clearly, and that you're helping people in a big way. Based on all your testimonials, you're doing an excellent job. So this event is going to be live on Saturday, July 27th, and I will have a link, and I'm going to make it easier for you guys that are listening to find the link to register for the live event. And it's possible you won't be able to make it, because we're so close to the deadline, and I haven't got this. I got to produce this video and podcast so you can see it and hear it. But they have a recording of it, and the recording will probably be available until the course launches, which is, when does the course start, Julie? Do you know?
It's Tuesday, August 13th.
Okay, so we have a couple weeks. And I'm fairly certain the Shift Network will still let you in on that, and you'll just get a recording of the live things that may have passed. But
yeah, if you register, you get the replay of it,
Yep.
and then we're also going to be doing a live Q&A session that's coming up. So if you register, you'll get access to all of that.
Right, and that live Q&A comes up before the course starts. Yeah,
yes,
all kinds of goodies. So if you follow the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com, I always give updates on social media as to where we're at, what you can access. So if I'm gonna make a link called the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/interview-Julie. That'll be easy instead of trying to spell her last name. Yeah. So interview-Julie, you will find her there, and you can register for this event and get the recordings and access to the live Q&A, and then an introduction to her course, which is called 7 Steps to Embody the Gifts of Your Sensitivity. And I have a feeling. So Julie, these courses, just so everyone knows, you're live 7 weeks in a row.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then people that are online can ask questions during this course. So there's like, as I recall, I took a course before. It's an hour maybe of training and then an hour of Q&A or something like that. Does that?
Yeah, it's like a 90-minute course, and so I'll be teaching live, and I'll also be doing Q&A live, and then do record it and do replays if you miss something. They also have a Facebook group that I'll be interacting in, so you can ask questions through that. And really, if you can't attend something, you can even get your question, sent in, and then watch the replay afterwards. So,
good.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say there's got to be a Facebook group that they create for every course. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, we'll have our Facebook group to interact in if you want to, in between the sessions and things like that. Yeah.
And do you do any like live Facebook live stuff in that group, Julie? Are you planning on that, or no pressure?
I'm not sure. I do Facebook Lives in my own Facebook group, so that would be something. Maybe we will do that. We'll look at that.
Okay. All right. Well, Julie, thank you so much, dear, for joining us today and being our transformational leader in the realm of highly sensitive people. If you're enjoying what's going on here, please comment below. You could be hearing us on a podcast at highvibetriberadio.com. If you're on YouTube, it's highvibetribetv.com. And if you want to check out our website, it's the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com. We'd love to have you visit us. We got it all going on Facebook, Instagram. I'm an artist, so I love Pinterest and Instagram. It's my place to express my HSP ways. I'm partial. I could be like 50% HSP. I don't know. Julie, thank you. And we're going to have to get you out here in Colorado one of these days, and we'll go check out the llamas and the alpacas and the fun.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Signing out, everybody. We'll see you next week.